Let me ask you a question that could change your life. What do you think about all day long? Because the answer to that single question determines everything. Your income, your relationships, your confidence, your peace of mind, your success, and even your failures. You become what you think about all day long. This isn't philosophy. It's not theory. It's reality. Your thoughts shape your beliefs guide your actions, and your actions build your future. If you think about fear, you live in hesitation. If you think about your dream, you live in motion. Your mind is the soil, and your thoughts are the seeds. What you plant is what you'll harvest. It's time to take full control of your mental garden. Today, we're going to explore how to think on purpose. Because if you don't choose your thoughts, the world will choose them for you. And when that happens, you become a product of the outside world instead of the master of your inner one. What occupies your mind most often becomes the blueprint of your reality. Every thought you allow to linger carries the weight of creation. It shapes your self-image, your direction, your attitude, and ultimately your life's outcomes. There is no escaping this universal truth. You become the mental picture you hold of yourself day in and day out. If you continually focus on problems, your life will mirror that turmoil. But if you lock your focus on growth, abundance, and purpose, everything around you begins to move toward that image. The mind does not care whether you're planting weeds or flowers. It simply brings forth what you feed it most often. Consider this for a moment. Every result you've achieved, whether desirable or not, began as a thought. The career you're in, the relationships you've built, the lifestyle you live, it all took form from thoughts you repeated often enough until they became part of your reality. What you consistently think about is not passive, it's a command. The mind is obedient, always listening, always reacting, always creating pathways that align with what you believe to be true. If your dominant thought is that you're not good enough, guess what? The world responds accordingly. You attract situations that reinforce that belief, people who treat you as less, and opportunities that slip away. Not because you weren't capable, but because your thoughts told you so, and you abide. This is why thought is the origin of all greatness and all failure. Every champion in history became a champion first in thought. Before the world saw the gold medals, the records, the masterpieces, the revolutions. They began as an unshakable idea in someone's mind. The individual held that idea long enough, fed it with belief, gave it energy through emotion, and backed it up with consistent action. What most people miss is the starting point. They want the achievement without the discipline of thinking. They crave the fruit but ignore the seed. But the truth is, your dominant thought today becomes your physical reality tomorrow. There is no shortcut. There is no cheat code. Whatever dominates your mind dominates your future. Thoughts aren't just passive flutters through the brain. They're the architecture of your destiny. The tragedy is, most people spend their day thinking about what they fear, what they lack, what they regret, or what others think about them. That mental pattern becomes an invisible cage. Even though they desire freedom, they cannot escape their mental chains. Why? Because you can only rise to the level of your thinking. If your thoughts are filled with worry, you cannot act with confidence. If your mind is clouded with doubt, you cannot see clearly. If your internal conversation is negative, your external circumstances will reflect it. Now imagine if you reverse the process. What if, instead of thinking about what could go wrong, you trained yourself to focus on what could go right? What if instead of rehashing failures, you reviewed your potential? Instead of worrying about what others think, you concentrated on who you're becoming. That shift alone could change everything. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing the lens through which you interpret it. Your thoughts are the lens. Change the lens and the entire picture changes. Every single day you have a choice. You can allow your thoughts to wander aimlessly, pulled by fear, comparison, distraction, or you can direct them with purpose. The people who rise in life, the ones who defy the odds and live with fulfillment, are not luckier or more gifted. They are more intentional with their thinking. They guard their mental environment like a fortress. They filter out what weakens them and dwell only on what strengthens them. They understand the secreting that power, and that power, once mastered, makes everything else possible. If you examine the lives of extraordinary individuals across every domain, business, sports, science, the arts, you'll find one common denominator. Long before the world acknowledged their greatness, they visualized it. They held it as a mental picture with such intensity that it became real to them before anyone else could see it. They became what they thought about, and so can you. But you must be deliberate. You must be relentless. You must treat every thought as a decision, Every mental image is a vote toward the person you wish to become. The difference between mediocrity and excellence lies in the quality of thought. Mediocre lives are filled with scattered thinking, reactive emotions, and borrowed beliefs. But lives of excellence are built on disciplined thought, chosen beliefs, and a clear mental picture of success. It's not talent that makes the difference. It's focus. The ability to hold a single powerful idea in your mind long enough to transform it from imagination to manifestation. That's the game. That's the truth most ignore while chasing shortcuts and distractions. Think about your current life. How much of it reflects what you've been thinking about over the last year? Are you surrounded by peace or chaos, growth or stagnation, confidence or confusion? Trace it back and you'll find the root in your thoughts. And this should excite you, not discourage you. Because if your thoughts have created your current life, you now hold the power to create a new one. You can start today, right now. You can shift your attention from fear to faith, from lack to abundance, from doubt to determination. And with repetition, your reality will catch up to your new mindset. Everything changes when you accept this responsibility. When you stop blaming circumstances and begin controlling your inner world. That's when life opens up. Opportunities start to appear. People begin to notice something different about you. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your thoughts became clearer. Your attitude shifted. Your energy elevated. And the law of cause and effect began working in your favor. But don't expect this transformation to be automatic. Your old thought patterns won't leave quietly. They've had years to build their influence. Fear, worry, and limitation have rented space in your mind for far too long. Evicting them takes intention. It takes repetition. It takes vigilance. Every time you catch yourself thinking small, redirect. Every time you hear the inner critic, interrupt. Every time you feel yourself shrinking, remind yourself of your vision. With every redirected thought, you take back control, and that control becomes momentum. The brain is a machine. It learns through habit. So if you've spent years feeding it anxiety, scarcity, or defeat, don't be surprised if it resists change at first. But don't be discouraged. The same way it learned to fear, it can learn to believe. The same way it learned to settle, it can learn to soar. You just have to rewire it. Daily, repeatedly, relentlessly. The compound effect of new thoughts over time creates a new identity. And your identity dictates your destiny. Let's be honest. This isn't always easy. When life throws setbacks at you, when people doubt you, when results don't come fast enough, the temptation is to slip back into old thinking. But that's the very moment you must hold your vision tighter. You must remind yourself who you're becoming, not who you've been. You must trust that your thoughts are building something, even when it's invisible. Because your outer world always lags behind your inner world. Keep the faith. Keep the focus. Keep planting the seeds. In time, the harvest will come. When you understand that your dominant thoughts shape your world, you no longer tolerate thoughts that shrink you. You no longer give energy to negativity, gossip, or complaint. You choose to think in alignment with your goals. You begin to think like the person you want to be, not the person you've been trained to be. You become conscious, and consciousness is the birthplace of freedom. So the question returns, what do you think about all day long? Because whatever that is, it's building your life. If you're thinking about purpose, you're stepping into it. If you're thinking about growth, you're expanding. If you're thinking about excellence, you're raising your standards. But if your mind is filled with fear, comparison, and regret, then you are unknowing constructing a future filled with limitations. No one else can do this work for you. You must decide what kind of life you want, and then train your mind to support it. This is not about wishful thinking. It's about focused, repeated, intentional thought, aligned with action and backed by faith. You are not the victim of circumstance. You are the product of your dominant thoughts. And if you have the courage to change your mind, you can absolutely change your life. Every mind is a magnet, constantly pulling toward it the people, circumstances, opportunities, and ideas that match its most dominant thought patterns. That pull isn't magic, it's momentum, the result of concentrated energy in the form of belief. When you realize that your brain is not simply a storage space, but a mechanism of attraction, the power shifts entirely into your hands. The question is no longer what you can do, but what you consistently think about doing. If the mind is trained on growth, abundance, confidence, service, and possibility, it becomes a powerful force that draws exactly those conditions into your life. Most people drift through their days unaware of what their thoughts are doing to them. They think in fragments. They focus on the negative. They allow doubt, fear, and hesitation to circulate and intensify. And then they wonder why their life feels stuck, like they're living beneath their potential. It's because they are. But the root isn't laziness or lack of talent. It's untamed thought. A thought left unguarded begins to multiply, and soon it becomes a belief. Beliefs govern behavior, and behavior determines outcome. So every repeated thought is like casting a vote for your future. The more votes you cast in one direction, the more inevitable that direction becomes. That's how people go from ordinary to exceptional. By mastering the inner vote before the outer results arrive. You've met people whose lives seem magnetic. They walk into a room and energy shifts. Opportunities find them. The right people enter their path. It's not because they're lucky. It's because their mind is aligned. They're clear about who they are. They've conditioned their thoughts toward purpose, action, and vision. That clarity creates a vibration. That vibration becomes a magnet, and that magnet pulls circumstances into harmony with their mental state. The invisible always precedes the visible. What's happening inside you is far more important than what's happening around you. To begin attracting better, you must begin by thinking better. Your mind can only attract what it is in harmony with. If you want wealth but constantly think in lack, you repel the very thing you want. If you want love but walk around thinking you're not enough, you block connection. The subconscious does not respond to your wishes. It responds to your dominant emotions. And those emotions are created by the thoughts you allow. That's why training the mind isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. If you don't train it, the world will. Thoughts backed by belief and emotion carry a magnetic quality. This is why two people can have the same goal, the same opportunity, but drastically different outcomes. One believes deeply and expects good things. The other doubts and anticipates failure. The first attracts momentum, progress, and allies. The second attracts obstacles, stagnation, and resistance. Not because one is more worthy, but because one is more aligned. You must decide which one you are. Are you thinking thoughts that align with your goals, or are you unknowingly sabotaging yourself with fear, worry, and internal conflict? Your mind becomes a magnet for what you repeatedly focus on. If you concentrate on problems, you'll notice more of them. If you dwell on scarcity, you'll feel more lack. But if you choose to focus on gratitude, on opportunity, on who you are becoming, your world begins to shift. This isn't theory. It's law. What you give energy to grows. What you pay attention to expands. Every thought is a seed, and that seed attracts what it represents. You can plant seeds of growth, confidence, and vision, or you can plant seeds of fear, self-doubt, and limitation. Either way, something is growing. The question is, are you planting consciously or unconsciously? You don't need to figure everything out all at once. You just need to start choosing thoughts that align with the life you want. Every time you do, you shift the magnet. You change the frequency. You begin to operate a new mental environment. And that shift begins to pull new things into your life. People you never met before suddenly show up. Ideas you couldn't access suddenly become clear. Doors that were closed begin to open. All of it starts inside. The most powerful tool in your possession is not your job, not your education, not your background. It's your mental magnet. Your internal magnet is always on, but the only choice is what it's attracting. And that depends entirely on the energy you allow your thoughts to generate. Do you allow yourself to feel empowered, capable, or driven, or do you let yourself spiral into excuses, anger, and envy? This is where mastery begins. Not with external tools, but with internal awareness. If you can learn to catch your thoughts and redirect them, even just for a few seconds at a time, you begin the process of transformation. You start taking the reins of the magnetic field around your life. And that field responds every time. Some might say, but I've tried thinking positively before, and nothing changed. That's because this isn't about surface-level thinking. It's about repetition, belief, and emotional charge. It's not enough to think once. You must think continually. You must feel it. You must believe it so deeply that your subconscious mind accepts it as truth. Then your behavior shifts. Then your attitude changes. Then the magnet becomes powerful enough to start moving the external pieces. If your thoughts are weak, your magnet is weak. But if your thoughts are focused, disciplined, and charged with emotion, your magnet becomes unstoppable. When you realize the power of your mind's magnetic force, you stop wasting energy on low-level thinking. You stop entertaining gossip, pessimism, and distraction. You start feeding your mind with books, mentors, ideas, and conversations that elevate you. You create a mental environment that supports the life you want to live. And slowly but surely, the outside world begins to reflect it. You attract clarity. You attract momentum. You attract a version of yourself you didn't know existed. That's alignment. And now we come to a truth even deeper. Repetition builds belief, and belief builds reality. You weren't born with your current beliefs, you adopted them. Some came from your parents, some from school, some from failures, and most were accepted without question. But here's the thing, beliefs can be reprogrammed. They are not facts. They are just thoughts you've accepted as true over time. If you want a new life, you must first create new beliefs. And the way to do that is through repetition. Repetition is how the mind learns. It's how habits are formed. It's how identity is built. If you tell yourself often enough that you are worthy, the mind starts to believe it. If you visualize success every morning, your brain begins to expect it. If you affirm your goals consistently, you begin to see yourself as the person who can achieve them. This isn't self-help fluff. This is neurological conditioning. The brain responds to what is familiar, not what is true. Make greatness familiar. Make belief familiar. Make purpose familiar. You've probably heard the saying, fake it till you make it. But there's a deeper truthing: affirm it until you become it. See it until it becomes part of you. Repetition doesn't just change your thoughts. It changes your identity. And identity is the most powerful force in human behavior. You will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. So if you can shift that belief through consistent thought, everything else follows. Think of your mind as a canvas. Whatever image you paint on it daily becomes your self-image. If that image is strong, capable, and deserving, your actions follow suit. But if that image is weak, doubtful, or broken, your actions will reflect that. The good news is, the brush is in your hand. You can repaint your self-image at any time through repeated, intentional thought. Affirm your vision. Speak your truth. Visualize your goals. And do it every day until it becomes automatic. Don't wait until you feel confident to think confidently. That's not how it works. Think confidently first, and the confidence will follow. Think successfully first, and success will begin to emerge. Thoughts precede feelings. Feelings precede actions. Actions precede results. Most people try to start at the end. They want results to change their thoughts. But the order can never be reversed. Repetition builds the belief. The belief builds the action. The action builds the result. And here's the most important part: you don't need anyone's permission to begin. You don't need a certificate. You don't need validation. You just need the decision to start thinking differently, to become aware of your thought patterns, to challenge the ones that no longer serve you, to replace them with ones that do. It's uncomfortable at first. The old patterns resist. But with time and commitment, the new beliefs take root. And once they do, your entire life begins to elevate. If you wake up every morning and tell yourself, I am capable, I am focused, I am here for a reason, and you do that long enough, your brain begins to create evidence to support it. It starts noticing opportunities. It starts filtering information differently. It begins moving you toward people and places that align with your new identity. All of that happens because repetition changed your belief. And belief changed your direction. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen with discipline. You already know how powerful repetition is. Just look at your current habits. The ones that limit you came from repetition. The same method that built limitation can now build liberation. That's the key. Repetition isn't good or bad, it's neutral. It simply builds whatever you feed it. Start feeding it strength. Feed it discipline, it clarity. And over time, those thoughts will become your foundation. Repetition is the builder of mental muscle. You don't go to the gym once and expect to be strong. You train daily. The same goes for thought. You don't repeat a belief once and expect transformation. You affirm it. You meditate on it. You speak it. You visualize it. And then, without even realizing it, your actions begin to change. Your habits begin to shift. Your standards rise. And your life begins to mirror the inner image you've repeated long enough to believe. Every life is shaped not just by what we do, but by what we allow ourselves to think. That's why the mind must be guarded like a fortress, with walls high and gates well protected. Every single thought has the power to build or destroy, to lift us up or drag us down. And most people, without ever realizing it, are letting their lives be built by thoughts they didn't choose. They listen to the world, to the critics, to the doubts, and to the fears that aren't even theirs, and then wonder why life seems hard, directionless, or unfair. But the truth is simply, when you let just anything into your mind, you get just anything out of your life. If your results are weak, it's because your thoughts are unguarded. If your emotions are chaotic, it's because your inner environment is unfiltered. The mind is the command center of everything. If you don't stand guard over it, you hand over your power to outside forces. Every complaint you listen to without challenging, every fear you accept without questioning, Every limiting belief you let in without resistance, that's a brick laid in the wrong direction. And over time, that wrong direction becomes a permanent wall separating you from your potential. That's why guarding the mind is not optional. It's not a motivational phrase. It's the discipline that determines your destiny. There's a reason champions are so deliberate about their mental inputs. They don't wake up and scroll social media to see what the world thinks of them. They don't surround themselves with gossip, doubt, or mediocrity. They choose their environment as carefully as a soldier chooses his armor. They know that one wrong influence, one casual exposure to negative energy, can derail their focus. They don't let people with small vision speak into their big dreams. And that level of mental protection isn't arrogance. It's awareness. Because what you hear, you begin to believe. What you believe, you begin to act on. And what you act on becomes your future. You must learn to recognize the difference between mental nutrition and mental poison. Mental nutrition fuels your belief, sharpens your focus, and expands your imagination. It comes from powerful books, purpose-driven mentors, uplifting conversations, and clear goals. Mental poison, on the other hand, dulls your spirit. It makes you doubt, complain, compare, and shrink. And it's everywhere. On your screen, in your workplace, in the voices of people who gave up on their own dreams. If you don't actively reject it, you unconsciously absorb it. The mind doesn't filter truth from lies. It accepts what is repeated. That's why guarding it is your greatest responsibility. Every time you let your guard down mentally, you give something else permission to shape you. You give power to fear, anxiety, distraction, and worst of all, apathy. You become reactive instead of proactive. You lose your edge. But when you guard your mind, you become intentional. You choose your thoughts, you control your emotions, and you build momentum in the direction of your highest vision. That's when the real change begins. Not from a motivational quote or a once-a-year goal, but from daily mental discipline, from refusing to let your mind be a dumping ground for the world's noise. The real transformation happens when you take ownership, not just of your schedule or habits, but of your thoughts. When you wake up and ask, what will I allow myself to think today? Instead of, what's happening to me today? You shift from victim to creator. And once you begin living in that mindset, the world starts to respond. You begin to attract clarity because your mind is clear. You begin to attract strength because your thoughts are strong. You begin to attract alignment because you are no longer conflicted within. You must get serious about your mental diet. You wouldn't eat poison and expect to stay healthy. So why feed your mind negativity and expect to feel powerful? You wouldn't let someone walk into your home and dump garbage in your living room. So why let toxic information, draining conversations, and small thinking into your mind where it shapes your entire reality? You can't rise above what you tolerate mentally. If you want a new life, you have to raise the standard for what you let into your head. And make no mistake, guarding your mind is not about being rigid or closed off. It's about being wise. It's about protecting the most valuable asset you have. Because once your mind is influenced, your choices are too. And your choices determine your character, your income, your relationships, your peace, and your path. Everything flows downstream from thought. So if you don't protect the source, the rest of the stream is polluted. When you choose to stand guard, you'll feel resistance. Old habits will try to pull you back. People who are used to the unguarded version of you might understand. But you're not here to be understood. You're here to grow. You're here to evolve. And that means you can no longer give energy to conversations that go nowhere, opinions that weaken you, or content that numbs you. Your future depends on the quality of your thoughts. And the quality of your thoughts depends on what you allow in. So start filtering everything. Filter your social media. Filter your conversations. Filter your internal dialogue. Ask yourself, does this feed my purpose or weaken it? Does this build my vision or distract from it? Does this bring clarity or confusion? And if the answer is no, cut it off ruthlessly. You are not here to entertain low-level thinking. You are here to build something extraordinary. And extraordinary lives are built on disciplined thoughts. You have the power to protect your mind like a warrior. You have the right to say no to anything that doesn't align with your future. You have the authority to write your mental environment. And once you do, everything begins to change. You stop leaking energy on things that don't matter. You stop wasting time with people who don't believe. You stop second-guessing yourself. Because now your mind is focused, fortified, and free. And when the mind is free, the soul can lead. When the noise is gone, the vision gets louder. When the fear fades, the drive awakens. When you no longer doubt your power, you start using it. That's what guarding the mind really does. It doesn't just protect, it unlocks. It creates space for greatness. It clears the path for purpose. It opens you up to everything you were always meant to be, but couldn't access while the doors of your mind were left wide open. From this space of clarity, power, and focus comes the final shifting, the realization that you are the author of your thoughts. You are not at the mercy of what appears in your mind. You are the creator of it. And if you don't like the story, you can rewrite it right now, not next month, not when life slows down, not when you feel ready, now. Because the truth is, your life is a mirror of your mental story. Change the story and the mirror reflects something new. You have to stop waiting for external change and start creating internal transformation. Every morning you get to choose what kind of energy you bring. Every thought you allow sets the tone for what follows. And the most powerful transformation starts with the smallest decisioning, to think with intention, to choose a better thought, to stop defaulting to fear, shame, or doubt, and instead speak belief into yourself. Declare your goals, visualize your success, affirm your value. Direct your mental energy toward what you want, not what you fear. This is how you rewrite your story. Not all at once, but one thought at a time. You wake up, you take responsibility, and you choose your words. You feed your mind on purpose. You speak to yourself with clarity. You move forward with vision. And every time you repeat that process, you build a new mental pattern. Over time, that pattern becomes a belief. That belief becomes identity. And identity becomes your destiny. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not hopeless. You are simply carrying thoughts that don't belong to the person you are becoming. And that's good news, because thoughts can be changed, patterns can be broken, beliefs can be rewritten, and futures can be created by choice. But only if you're willing to do the inner work. Only if you take full responsibility for your mental blueprint. Only if you stop telling yourself the same tired story of why you can't and start telling the truth about why you must. You must grow because your purpose demands it. You must rise because your future depends on it. You must think differently because your current life is a reflection of your past thoughts. And if you want to live in alignment with your true potential, it starts with choosing better thoughts consistently, repeatedly, boldly. Every breakthrough begins in the mind. Every transformation starts with thought. You can try to fix the outside all you want, but until you align your inner world, the change won't last. But when the inside is solid, when your thoughts are guarded, your focus is sharp, and your story is empowering, the outside world bends in your favor. The opportunities appear. The doors open. The people align. Because you become the kind of person who attracts it. That's the power of the mind. That's the reward of discipline. That's the result of protecting your thoughts, writing your story, and standing guard at the gates of your greatest gifting, the mind that can create anything when it finally believes.